The Hangout is live. Yay! Greetings, friends of the apocalypse. This is Jerry the Apocalypse, Nerd Wallace, and Adam Bomb Glancy for Podcast at Ground Zero, Episode 32, The Triffids.
It is indeed the day, or at least the episode of the Triffids.
The day of the Triffids. And you know what? I had a thought that came to mind, and oh, what is going on here? It's hold on.
You have a little lag?
Yeah, no, that's what was fucking me up. Okay. Anyway, yay! So, first thing that came to mind is, you know, the Triffids, don't they seem to resemble the Yithian just a little too much?
There is some resemblance in some of the stories, or in some of the illustrations of Triffids, where they look a wee bit Yithian, but I don't really think that is... the intention. It depends on which version. I mean, God knows, I haven't seen the 1950s monster movie in a while, but my recollection was that they almost didn't look like plants in that movie. They
had these weird, like, heads, and, yeah, the 1963 adaptation was definitely the monster movie of the week, like Them or the Atomic Man Monster, and whatever was those 50s, 60s movies of the week.
Yeah. All right, so let's start off with the origin of all this.
Just before we hit the book, just a couple of quick in the news things. No, not a whole lot this week. One thing I forgot to mention last time was I came across this app. Well, at least it's on the iPhone, for this little game called This Is Not a Test. And it's kind of got this look of this, the kind of, what was like those, like the 50s comics, the Creep, or, you know what I'm talking about, those 50s, like, horror comics.
No, you mean like Vault of Horror and Creepy and Eerie, which were the 70s versions?
Eerie, yeah, like, it has that kind of look to it. It's like this apocalyptic situation. There's this gas and blah blah blah, and it's kind of like choose your own story kind of thing, and you gotta pick different skill sets and different paths. And it was free for a time, and it was kind of amusing, but it's just too short and always winds up being at the end. So for free, it was amusing for about 5 minutes. I was hoping for more out of it, because I was starting like, okay, choose your own adventure, kind of move around, and you pick your, but wound up being a little bit of a fail there.
Okay.
So I wasn't that happy with it. And the other thing I had going is I started watching is Sci-Fi Channel has yet another series that's been out for about 3 weeks now called Z Nation.
Z Nation. More zombies?
Zombies. More zombies.
Send more zombies.
And, of course, it is definitely done in typical Sci-Fi Channel fashion. It's a stereotypical Sci-Fi Channel TV show. Absolutely. Not the best acting, not always the best plots, stories, but I will say one thing. I only watched 2 episodes of The Last Ship. So they lost me after 2. They lost me after 2, The Last Ship. Z Nation, I went in with no expectations, knowing it's a Sci-Fi Channel TV series. And it ain't that, like I said, it ain't that great. But you know what? It's okay. I mean, it keeps me entertained, and actually Nancy likes to watch it too. So, I mean, that says something that my wife that isn't into horror will watch it. So that tells you something.
Yeah.
A lot of action. A couple of interesting premises, and there's been things here and there that are kind of fun, but a lot of gore, a lot of action. So it's, if you got 45, 50 minutes, you just watch it. It's okay. It's nothing to write home about, and I'm watching it for now.
Okay.
And it's one thing that was interesting with it, I won't spoil this because this is like a brand new fucking series, but they pull a gag off in this series that they have not pulled off in The Walking Dead yet, and I'm expecting them to do that in The Walking Dead the latter half of this season. just based on the original graphic novels. I'm expecting that gag. They haven't done it yet. They did the gag. They beat them to doing the gag in the zombie apocalypse.
Beat them to their own punch. All right.
And I said it's not The Walking Dead, that's for sure. Again, The Walking Dead's not a piece of Shakespeare either, okay? But it's a good show. So
I'm still on board.
Yeah.
As the next season comes out.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No. It's not like I'm not gonna watch it, but Z Nation, it's if you got the time, it's worth checking out. It's not, it's not great. I saw somebody said it's like, oh, it's kind of like Sharknado, and I'm like, ooh, it's not that bad. It's bad, but it's not that bad. In my opinion.
Wow. Let's hope it's not Sharknado. Just
nothing should be Sharknado, but
really. So let me throw you a piece of news. There's a Kickstarter going on right now.
Oh, okay.
For a post-apocalyptic computer game called Bedlam, Bedlam.
I have not seen this.
By a company called Sky Shine Games. Right now, they're looking for $130,000. They've got 49,312 at the moment here on September 30th or 29th or whatever this is. I guess it's the 29th. September 29th, 2014. 1,900 backers and 25 days to go. They just got this thing started. Bedlam looks like kind of a low-resolution game that the gameplay looks very similar to things like the original XCOM and the old versions of Fallout. Turn-based combat, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it is, and the part that I thought you'd be amused by is that it's all about crewing, staffing, and manning your dozer, which is a giant armored vehicle that you pilot around the wasteland, trading and adventuring and variously getting up to trouble or also, blowing shit up with. So yes, you cruise around this post-apocalyptic world known as Bedlam, with your dozer armored vehicle, which is clearly Warwag, whatever the hell you want to call it. And it looks like it's going to be a very simple game. I don't know how big or how many hours gameplay that they're anticipating, but it's not Halo. It's not Call of Duty. All right.
Well, nothing should be Halo. I don't like Halo. I just
so,
found it.
Good. You found it on the Kickstarter site? Yeah.
Yep. I've looked at it. It looks very low budget and cheesy, but you know what? We kind of like that stuff.
Yeah. Give those guys their 15 minutes of fame here on Podcast at Ground Zero. So I just wanted to throw that one out.
Oh yeah, they still got they got over 3 weeks to go, and they were already a third of the way there. So they seem to be tracking pretty good. Yeah,
they're cruising along at the right speed. They're only 5 days in out of 30, and they're a third of the way there. So they're on an upward trajectory. I will also point out that today is the last day to throw any money at my Kickstarter, the Horrors of War, which is our Call of Cthulhu meets World War I scenario anthology. We have already passed our original stretch goals of $16,000. Right now, we're at $26,000. There are 7 hours to go. I don't expect that we will make the $32,000 Kickstarter goal, which was a stretch goal, so that everyone who got the first book, everyone who paid in to buy the first book would get the second book if we doubled our original intention. If we got a 200% take, everyone would get 2 books for the price of 1. I don't think we're going to make it. I certainly hope that people, and I've said on the site, please don't add to your bid, okay? Don't just start going, well, I gave $45 for the book. I guess I should throw in another, 30 or 40 bucks. Don't do that. You've already done your pledge. I'm thrilled with your pledge. Just get new people. Just keep making noise on social media in the last few hours. And if we get there, we get there. But for God...
Or like you said, you talked Crow into doing the PDF version. I know you had a lot of holdouts for that.
Yeah,
But
we've made several announcements, including a mailing out to every single person who had previously pledged to let them know that John had decided to go with a PDF version of the book. So there is not just a PDF version for $20, but there is also a digital backer reward level where you can get all the rewards that are digital for $40. You just don't get the softcover book, signed or unsigned, depending on your preference. But we're in the last 7 hours of that. I don't know that this broadcast will make a great deal of difference in that, but
well, you know, I
thought I'd make a mention of it here at the last moment, as long as we're talking about other people's. And I would like to point out they've been in it for 5 days and they've raised $49,000. I'm in it for 60 days and I raised 26. So maybe I'm in the wrong business. Maybe I picked the wrong genre.
Now, what I want to know is how many hours did you have to waterboard John Crow to get him to give into the PDF?
You know, I got to tell you, I think the main reason he gave in is because he got incredibly sick. He came down with some terrible respiratory disease, and he finally went, you know what, I have many things I have to deal with right now, and worrying about this PDF or having to put up with you, Glancy, coming and talking to me about a PDF version over and over again when I am spending my last hours on Earth wheezing in my blood-filled lungs. Screw it! Let there be a PDF. See if I care. I'll be dead, and it won't matter. Sadly, he didn't die. So he's agreed to the PDF and then failed to die, so he'll be forced to live with the consequences of having authorized it.
So you badgered him to death to get him, almost to death to get him to do it.
Well, let me point out that we've probably jumped up $6,000 since the PDF was.
Absolutely, because that is what the market bears now. People want their hardcover, people want their books, but people also want their digital options as well. That's something they want to supplement and go along with it.
Yeah, I just played a game of just to point out other people's products. Played a game of Hollow Earth Expedition, which is this great pulp Nazis, dinosaurs, Hollow Earth 1930s adventure game on Sunday. And yeah, I brought my hard copies of the books with me, but the hard copies actually ended up just sitting there while I opened up all the PDFs on my laptop and zipped through them looking for the rule I was trying to find. You know. Because they're searchable.
It's the modern age, sir. It's the modern age.
Who needs a Game Master screen when you have a frickin' laptop? That's your Game Master screen.
Your laptop screen.
Yeah.
But speaking of, there's one more quick thing, not related to what we're talking about, because I figured it just came to mind was, because we're talking about Kickstarters, and it made me think of the Metamorphosis Alpha one from Goodman Games.
Yeah.
How the books are finally on the slow boat, and they send pictures of their advanced copies, and wow, does that look fucking sweet. That big-ass fucking hardcover, it looks awesome. It looks so good. But also, I was also looking at Goodman Games site, and this is something you and I were talking about, was you're like, remember we talked about, you're like, whatever happened to all the Grimtooth stuff? Remember we were talking about Grimtooth?
Oh, yeah, Grimtooth traps, yes.
Goodman Games partnered up with Rick Loomis from Flying Buffalo, and Goodman Games is putting out the Uber edition of Grimtooth. All the previous books in one large-ass 500-plus something, probably big-ass hardcover, and with a ton of additional material as well. The original ones are the original scans, original format. They said nothing's changed, compatible with every game. We haven't updated nothing. It's all the original stuff, plus a lot of new stuff in one big-ass collection.
They'll get some shekels from me for that.
I think I'm going to need to do it too, because let me tell you, Goodman Games is doing a lot of good stuff. I hate to say that, but if they could keep on doing this stuff, bringing collections of this old stuff for the old school gaming and the grognards. Oh, also they're partnering up with the dudes from one of the dudes from originally the Judges Guild.
Oh,
compiling that stuff. So they're really finding the old stuff and making it accessible to people who might not be able to find stuff in the past. So who knows what they'll do next?
Well, I'm glad to say this stuff doesn't, have games out there, and we're going to get the good with the bad. But I'm glad to have the option of being able to get the good with the bad, because one person's terrible shit product is another guy's lost treasure. There's always going to be somebody out there to get it, and when we're not murdering trees to get it, for these digital options, it's even better.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's kind of cool that they're doing all that. So, anyways, that's enough, folks, for our sidetrack conversation. What a surprise! But you know what to expect by now. So,
yeah, this should not have come as a surprise to anyone. I'm working on another. Well, first of all, I got my post-apocalyptic Canadian book, the Fractured. I got Fractured, so that's arrived. So we're going to have to make time to review Fractured.
Read it, and we'll read it. And I started a little bit. I only got through the intro, but you know what? Even though it's a 2-page intro. That's all I read, but I like what she had to say so far. I was like, okay, she seems pretty cool. So
the other thing I'm looking at right now is Annihilation, which is the first book in the Southern Reach trilogy. Apparently, the first book was self-published or something, and then it's been picked up. It has it has an apocalyptic aspect to it, in that it's a micro-apocalypse, Jared. There's a place called Area X, where apparently all civilization has been wiped out. I will just go ahead and read the back intro, which is, Area X has been cut off from the rest of the world for decades. Nature has reclaimed the last vestiges of human civilization. The first expedition returned with reports of a pristine, Edenistic landscape. The second expedition ended in a mass suicide. The third expedition ended in a hail of gunfire as its members turned on one another. The members of the 11th expedition returned as shadows of their former selves, and within weeks all had died of cancer. In Annihilation, the first volume of Jeff Vandermeer's Southern Reach trilogy, we join the 12th expedition. And they've definitely, during the course of the book, sort of defined it as having a cosmic horror aspect. There is definitively a creeping apocalypse aspect to it. It's more weird fiction. It's more cosmic horror than apocalyptic, but there are certain apocalyptic factors in it that may prove out in the later volumes. But once I'm done with Annihilation, I'll be putting that down and going straight to Fractured, so we can get on top of that.
Oh, and one other thing I forgot to mention. I meant to mention it before air, but I got an email today from on the show email.
Excellent. It's an event because we never get those.
I get them occasionally, but we got an email from a gentleman, and I'm gonna probably get his last name wrong. Max Messina.
Okay.
Apparently, he just found the webpage, found the podcast, found the YouTube channel. He's watching episode 12 with Mr. Fry. Twilight 2000.
Yeah.
It was a great show, guys. He just also wanted to let us know that he was one of the guys that worked on Twilight 2013, and he just wanted to say hello.
Oh, well, we did drag them back and forth over the coals, didn't we?
Yeah, and I'm like, why is he emailing? I'm like,
well, that was polite. I mean, even though we trashed his game, it's not like he went, "You're all scum and baby fucking monsters. I hate you all." I mean, he didn't go that route, which is what I do when someone criticizes.
Oh yeah, I'm like, yeah. I mean, it's criticism. We're all entitled to our opinions.
Yeah.
For right or for wrong. Me and you we could be completely wrong about our opinion about it. But I doubt it because we're always right. But
and I still say that one of these days we need to say, hey viewers, write down your questions for Frank Fry about working on products for Game Designers Workshop, and go back and hit him with a bunch of viewer-generated questions.
And this might be an opportunity. Maybe we could bring Max on and he could have him talk and defend his Twilight 2013.
Well, let's call it a defense because that sounds like we're prosecuting him. Like it's going to be a sentence.
You are the former lawyer, sir.
So yeah, you're sentenced to Goodman Games will find you in another 20 years in the cutout bin and resurrect your product. I don't think I'm going to do that, but if it's only from
well, not defense, but to bring his point of view, his thought process, his justification, why he wrote what he did and why he did it, because Frank did the same thing, like what he wrote in his stuff. So maybe to be fair, give fair airtime,
Damn straight. Plus,
So
it fills airtime. Plus, it has controversy because nothing puts butts in seats like Edition Wars.
exactly, like apparently the most. I can't remember what the guy said now. It was the
It was
worst.
something about it was pure Edition Wars because we were saying that that we didn't like different editions of Gamma World.
Yeah, it was. Did he say it was like, now? All right, sorry, folks. I'm going to digress for one more second here, and then I'm going to. I promise we are going to start talking about the Triffids.
We swear that eventually there will be giant cannibalistic plants. Actually, I shouldn't say cannibalistic because they're not eating each other. They're giant man-eating plants crossing the post-apocalyptic landscape.
Oh, all right. So this is what I want on my tombstone. This was Edition Wars at its most ignorant and divisive. Yay!
Yeah, there you go.
Ignorant and divisive.
That's us in a nutshell. I think that may have perfectly encapsulated this broadcast. All right, plants.
You were going to start on the original 1951 book, so
sure.
Give us a little bit on that, sir.
I think I do not remember when I first ran into Triffids. I think I first saw the 1962 movie.
That would be 1963.
1963 movie. I saw it and I was not impressed as a kid. But later, a friend of mine discovered the book. I think it was my friend Richard Smith. He's since gone on to be a obscenely wealthy radiologist. He discovered it, and then we also, I think, together discovered the 1981 TV series on the BBC, which is
this one right here.
Well, yes, it's that very same one, right? Here.
Suspicious. It's the same thing.
Yeah. So I went back and I read the book before I saw the TV series. And I was amazed that the TV series was so faithful to the book. But the book,
very, very, very faithful to the book.
The book was published in 1951, which I got to tell you, is a marvelously, early in the post-apocalyptic fiction by a guy named John Wyndham. And at least that was his pen name. I think his full name ends in Harris. It's like John Wyndham, 5 more names, and then Harris. Let me see what. Hold on. Wikipedia says John Wyndham Parks Lucas Banan Harris.
Gee, that's a mouthful. Say that 5 times faster.
Yeah, the third. Sadly, it is not the third. But basically, what you've got is a couple of great forward-thinking concepts. One is that it is a bioengineered plant, the Triffids, pioneered in the USSR, and then it escaped into the wild because they let the seeds blow or somebody tried to smuggle some out, and it has an oil that is replacing, and I think in the book it's not petroleum, but it's.
I thought it was petroleum. It was getting us.
I'm just looking at the Wikipedia article here, and they're saying that it was the Triffids were replacing all fish and vegetable oils. It was superior, in all ways to that. But I do sort of remember that there was a petroleum aspect to it.
Yes,
that it was biodiesel, and it's biodiesel. The idea of biodiesel in the 1950s, I'm just kind of amazed by that.
Oh yeah, he was very thinking way ahead on in his thinking, because it's like biodiesel. He was already thinking about alternative fuel sources in '51.
Yeah, and
or probably the 40. We probably wrote it earlier than that, so late '40s.
So it's a bioengineered plant, but for some reason, we have failed to, the Soviets or whatever, have failed to bioengineer out the part where the plants can move, the plants can communicate.
And can fucking eat you like a fucking Venus flytrap.
And they are poisonous, or venomous, I should say, because you can eat, I guess you can eat them and they won't be poisoned because they're making cooking oil out of them. But they're venomous and carnivorous.
And aggressive as hell.
Yeah. And the idea is that they definitely follow vibrations, so they can feel your footsteps, and they can aim their the stamen in the flower to flip out and whack you like a venomous tentacle. And the venom causes blindness for those who aren't killed outright. temporary to permanent.
And they always talk about one of the things, the mysteries that our protagonist Bill, what's his last name?
Mason.
Bill Mason brings up. He's like they always seem to go for the eyes.
Yeah.
Like they know to go for the eyes. That's why he thinks there's a rudimentary intelligence in these things, even though they don't have a nervous system, no brain they could find, but they always go for the eyes.
And the other thing I liked was the idea that the communication was, and they did it great in the 1981 thing, where it's this long, hollow plant tube, sort of flower stem, much like a pitcher plant.
Yeah.
And they have roots that tap on that hollow tube, and
on the side, no, on the base, it's like a bulbous base, it's like a bulb, and they have these little tiny little stubs that go on the side.
And it's like this evil plant telegraph for communicating with each other and coordinating their movements. And, but it's 1951 and we've got them behind barbed wire and everything's fine. We're never going to have to worry about this. What's to worry about? We're the top of the food chain. And the even scarier thing is, and it might have stood on its own as a novel if Wyndham had just written The Blindness Plague, where everybody loses their eyesight.
Yeah.
Because that's the next thing that happens is that civilization falls because there's a meteor shower and everyone who looks up at it gets their retinas damaged. And suddenly everyone who wasn't passed out drunk in an alley, who looked up because it's a once-in-a-lifetime chance to see this, new meteor shower, everyone's blind. And the idea that we are two soft-boiled eggs away from being starving meat bags is pretty horrifying.
Oh, yeah, he definitely, based on, now there's theories that come out of the book that, it wasn't necessarily a meteor shower, it might have been purposeful.
Yeah.
And
some sort of orbital weapon system that malfunctioned.
Because then again later in the book, there's all of a sudden there's this mysterious sickness that's not, it's not bubonic plague, it's not dysentery, it's not, a whole slew of diseases you get when you have a lot of dead bodies and confined people and bad hygiene, that there's this mysterious disease that happens. So there's a lot that he alludes to in the book to say that, the events that happened may have not been natural, And just the whole idea of this, it's about society collapsing, everybody going blind, how everything falls apart, how our civilization and our survival depends on us being able to see. Because without our sight, we are done for in the book. And, you could kind of believe it. Now, and like you said, he throws into the mix, hey, you know what? Let's just make it more interesting. Now you gotta dodge these, man-eating plants that are everywhere.
And are just as blind as you, except they were designed to be blind. This is a feature, not a bug, okay? They didn't look up at the goddamn meteor shower. They're fine,
And the thing is that in the book, these things are everywhere. Like besides having them in their farms to get the oils, they're in people's gardens. They are in public gardens, but they cut off the poisonous stinger, and it takes about 2 years for it to grow back. So they have them under control there. But the thing is, after everything happens, they start breaking loose, and they immediately. Now, to Bill Mason, they become a problem immediately. He's like, oh my God, we got to worry about these Triffids. But a lot of the people that he runs into think he's fucking crazy. They're like, Triffids, they're just plants. What do we got to worry about? Because they're around, people know about them, but they don't realize how dangerous these things really are, especially in mass, and the situation we are now in where we can't defend ourselves because we can't fucking see.
And I got to also point out that some of the mass attacks, the mass slow-moving attack of the tortoise, I mean, John Carpenter made this comment about, monster movies where the monster moves slow, and he called it the attack of the tortoise. These things are the attack of the tortoise. They are slow, but Wyndham built something into it where it doesn't matter how slow they're moving, you can't see. Or, worse, you've created a little sanctuary in the post-apocalyptic world which is your little tree fort or whatever. And doesn't matter how slow they're moving, you're not going anywhere because you're trying to farm 2 acres. You know, you're trying to get some food out of the ground because you've exhausted the canned food in London or whatever. So it has, it has sort of a zombie apocalypse, proto-zombie apocalypse feel. Some of the scares.
I think Romero even made mention at one point about.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was reading somewhere about he had mentioned some kind of, or maybe somebody made the comparison of, the zombies and Wyndham's book, Day of the Triffids, with the slow menace.
Yeah. A menace we could deal with, and in both cases, Wyndham and Romero both present this idea that this is a menace we could deal with if we could just stop bickering for 5 minutes.
We can't.
No. No, we do not. We dropped this ball. We really do. We could have confronted the problem, but no, we would rather have an argument. And there are some great arguments in the book. I love the first group of survivors they run into in London who their goal is to get every sighted person out of London and leave the rest to die because it's too big a problem. We cannot handle it.
And they realize that, but also they have some other views like women are just baby factories.
Yeah, every woman's gonna have to get pregnant. We're not having any birth control anymore. We're not, they see the way, but it comes off as very fascistic and very, Plato's Republic, which is, enlightened fascism, but a lot of, you must now serve society. Society doesn't serve you as an individual in this new world. And there's that poor bastard who, who kidnaps Mason and some of the other survivors and tries to make them take care of the blind people, and that works out well.
There was a Coca.
Yeah, and there's other viewpoints in this that come up. There's people who bail out of the first group of survivors, the first really big organized group of survivors that they run into. But ultimately, ultimately it's a really decent survival story. We were looking on the Wikipedia page, and it mentions that Brian Aldiss, a science fiction writer, Hugo Award winner, coined the phrase "cozy catastrophe," and a lot of post-apocalyptic fiction is cozy. Where the end happens. There's supposedly a nuclear war, but then it just like all this shit's laying around for free, and everybody gets a cool sports car or an M1 tank and all the right guns they want. There's a lot of the men's adventure post-apocalypses that go like that. I particularly think to Blank in the Ashes. I read like 2 of those, and there's this big talk about some sort of war or whatever, and there's like no effects of this giant nuclear war at all, except there are just less people, and I would say that he accuses Triffids of being a cozy catastrophe, and I got to tell you, I don't remember it being cozy. There was the sickness that came later. There's the Triffids that are up your ass every second. There's fighting with the other people in the other communities. This did not strike me as cozy, sir.
Oh, there was nothing cozy. Like, he ran into his first person Bill Mason hooked up with was the woman who was like the one blind guy had her tied up like a fucking seeing eye dog, leading him around to find him stuff, and beating her with a stick, Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't think Triffids was particularly cozy. Sure, there was no nuclear winter, and there wasn't, radiation, but it's fucked. Okay, it's utterly and completely fucked. Not just that, but I love the disease that comes later.
Yeah. Again, they alluded to it, like in the book. I think they talked a little more about it than they did in the TV series.
Yes.
And Bill thought that this disease that came right after the blindness. Nobody was able to identify what it was because it was not anything that they knew.
It wasn't like what you'd expect, which would be cholera and typhus.
Nothing. It was not
from piles of dead bodies. You'd get cholera and typhus. But
this is because it hit right away. You didn't even have time to have piles and mountains of rotting bodies. Like this shit happened. It happened fast. Within like a week, people were just dropping dead. You know.
Yeah. So I read the Triffids back in the '80s, and it has always been one of my all-time. I think I put it on my top 10. It's always one of my favorite apocalypses. It gets points for being original. Nobody, being to having elements of an alien invasion. It's an invasive species in apocalypse. You know, like if walking catfish or something were going to take over the earth. And it for 1951, it is way ahead of the curve.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just recently, quote unquote, read it. I got it as a audiobook. You know, I did my free subscription to Audible and got a free book and canceled it. So I was listening to it on the way to work, and I was listening to it at work. So the reading of it, which is pretty good, and it's like I agree with you. It's a good book. You know, again, at the time, because the only thing that was really out post-apocalyptic at the time, like you had a Brian Aldiss book, I think it came out around the same time, which was Hot House, or known as The Long Afternoon of Earth, which wasn't very good. I'm sorry. Yeah, you had I think you might have had Michael Moore's. There's a Michael Moorcock book that was out. I forget the name at this time. There was
very close to this. We looked this up. Alas Babylon is really close to this.
There was close to this. There was The Lost Continent or Beyond 30, which came out like in the 20s. So there wasn't a whole lot out there yet in this post-apocalyptic kind of genre. So he was very early into this, and he did a very good job. You know,
yeah.
It wasn't about nuclear war. It wasn't about this. It was about, yeah, something happened. We're all blind. We're all fucked. And look, there's man-eating plants. You know, and the plants are like, fuck, dude. Like later on in the book, when they, you know, they try to burn them. They try to this. They try to that. They try to electrify fences. Because the plants, they were smart. They communicated. They learned. You know, that was what was scary. They fucking learned. You know. They knew when you were going to do stuff. They knew, you know, when to avoid stuff. That was scary because it's a fucking plant.
Yeah, but they know when the sun's up and they know when the sun's down, and they know you fucking meatbags are less effective when the sun's down.
Exactly. And so they, you know, then eventually take, you know, the Isle of Wight. They try to find the best defense. So book very good. And you know, there was a follow-up book called Night of the Triffids. I didn't read Night of the Triffids, but Big Finish Audio put out one of their radio like kind of plays, where one of their, you know, radio stories for Night of the Triffids, which followed the book.
Mm-hmm.
Not a good follow-up. You know, even though there was embellishment from it being like a radio drama as opposed to just a reading of the story, but the whole premise of it, I don't know. It wasn't very good.
Okay. Well, it's 25 years after the events of Triffids.
Yeah.
Where does it go wrong, in your opinion?
It was all.
I've never read it. I've never seen it.
It was all just like an action story. You know, look, we're, you know, sailing across the ocean in New York City, and there's this tyrant, and what was the name of the one? Spoiler alert, people. What was the name of the one character who?
More?
The one who was, you know, the thug in the city, then eventually was the military guy later on.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. You see him as a punker, a 1980s sort of Sid Vicious punk on the streets of London at the beginning, and then later he shows up and he's in this fascist military uniform. It's 10 years later, and he's graduated to being, you know, I'm your district commissioner, and we're going to rebuild civilization, or we're going to blow your brains out, you know. Yeah, I know you're talking about the character, but...
I'm trying to think of the character's name. Hold on. It is... Torrance.
Okay, Torrance.
Yeah, Torrance, you know, shows up in the book. He's ruling New York City, and there's, like, you know, 25 years of they have boats and subs, and it's just ridiculous. It's all just this...
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, they bounced back that fast, boats and subs.
Oh, they have like steamships, and there's, you know, submarines to go back and forth to the secret rebel base because they're trying to fight the evil that is, Torrance's New York City.
Because, a city like New York, if there's one thing we've learned in the post-apocalypse, is that a big city like New York is going to be very easy to maintain with a population 1/100th or 1/1000th of its original population, right?
Yeah. Well, they do it all by slave labor, and it's.
Yeah, but just having enough people to sweep those streets, to pump out those subways, to keep the buildings from degrading and falling into the Hudson River.
Yeah, and when they're on the Isle of Wight, like the son of Bill Mason is a fighter pilot. Like they were able to maintain a fighter jet, and he flies around. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. We've also, you're the one who brought up the thing about how fighter jets, they just degrade sitting there. You can't pick up a fighter jet 10 years later, or even a year later.
Well, that's modern jets. Now, mind you, we're talking 50s, Sabre jet technology.
Okay.
I would give them the benefit of the doubt if it was, back then. But modern jets, no way. They're done. Those electronics are so sensitive. Yeah. But it's just ridiculous. It's just an excuse to have an action story, and from my opinion, just again, I didn't read the book. I read the audio. I heard the audio dramatization.
Well, I got one question. What are the fucking Triffids doing?
Still breeding. There's like 18-foot tall Triffids that keep on growing outside the barriers of the New York City, which they blow up with artillery every so often. And then there's water Triffids because they've adapted to living in the waters and the rivers, and it's
not good.
No. Oh, and there's big hordes of just through the landscape like the buffalo were, before we wiped them out, just, covering the plains, and, of course, Indians immune. So,
what?
Yeah, some of them have like.
Wow! I'm sorry, they went with the racist red man. He impervious to Triffid.
Yep.
Wow. Well, let me point out that one of the big, here's a stupid for that bothers me, is that the whole point was Triffids can't come up with the chlorophyll to feed themselves, so they have to put their roots in decaying matter. So they have to kill constantly, which means at some point they're going to run out of meat bags and animals to kill, and are going to actually start, there's actually going to start being fewer of them because they're going to start exhausting their own food supply because they wouldn't be predators if they didn't have to be. If they could just sit there and soak up the sun. So this idea of herds of them sweeping or waddling majestically across the plains of Kansas. Have you noticed that nothing grows in Kansas except,
Oh, no, this is like along in the south, in like Georgia, Florida, like near Florida or something. It's just bad. There's like I said, it's just not good. It's at least, and Big Finish usually does some pretty good audio dramatizations. Yeah. So I'm sure it's pretty close to the book. So Night of the Triffids, I'm gonna have to give it a
thumbs down.
Thumbs down. So let's get away from that and let's talk about the
movie. This awesome thing, the TV series. Oh, the movie.
Let's talk about the movie. Then we'll talk about the movie briefly. Then we'll talk about the 2 TV series.
All right, you go with the movie.
The movie, I just watched it over the weekend. Definitely that 1950s, 60s monster movie of the week. That's how they adapted it. It's like Them or The Beast from 20,000 Leagues, or it was something like that. They turned these plants into these like monsters, like screaming, very Grecian women. There's a monster plant. I can't do anything. I'm helpless. Type of women.
Yeah.
And like you'd see in those films. Now, it starts off with the same thing. There's this meteor shower that blinds everybody, but the Triffids are plants that are already on Earth that were apparently brought to Earth from a previous meteor shower, decades ago. So they're just these little harmless little Venus flytrap type plants that are, in gardens and stuff. But when the second meteor shower comes there, blinds everybody, all of a sudden they mutate into these 10-foot tall monsters with long tentacles that, you know, grab people and suck them in, and they just don't blind people. They just sting you and poison you, and you turn like blue, and they suck you in, they wrap you up, and decay you, and you know, eat you alive. And apparently, the meteor shower brought more and more seeds, and the seeds started to spread everywhere. You know.
So there's no previous experience with Triffids whatsoever.
Nope, they just know that there's these little plants in the garden, and all of a sudden, the second meteor shower, excuse me, all of a sudden they mutate to 10-foot tall monster plants. You know.
Yeah, yeah, and I always remember them in the movie looking more arachnid-like, more insect arthropod-like than plant-like to me. They looked like more spidery, you know, insect creatures.
Oh yeah, they have these weird, like, they look like these like sideways heads and tentacles everywhere. Yeah, it's pretty bad. Now there was a couple of interesting things that came out of it. Like number one, we talked about how they didn't really address it in the book, was how you'd have all these factions of folks, like military folks, submarines, deep in like bases, bunkers, silos, that would not be watching this light show, that would not be blinded.
Yeah, there's no way the submarine on patrol in the Cold War is going to surface to give everybody a look at the meteor shower, the once-in-a-lifetime. Too bad, comrade sailor. You know, go back to whatever, you know, shitty radioactive Soviet, you know, submarine you're in. No one was going to surface and do that. No one was going to leave Crystal Palace or Cheyenne Mountain or the bunker, the hole at Omaha at Strategic Air Command. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that was designed for the Cold War that's going to miss the light show. And then that would have provided some structure for the recovery, if there could be a recovery. Perhaps that could break down too, but at least there'd be something there, which they did in the movie, but they didn't do it in any of the books or anything like that. So, but in the movie, it's completely, you know, cavalry over the hill. Everything's all better.
Yeah. And there was another thing that was interesting in the movie, which again I liked, was the guy's not blinded by a Triffid. He's a seaman, like a merchant seaman, and having eye surgery. So still wakes up, still in the hospital, does the bandage, roams around, finds a girl, but it's a little girl, because he goes to the train station because he doesn't know what's going on. And when he's at the train station, you know, the 8:50 train comes in and fucking plows into the fucking train station. Like, it's like, woo-woo! It's going, and apparently it's a train station that has a point that it stops, crashes into there, and then all of a sudden, you had people on the deck there, whatever they call it. I can't remember what they call it, where people are waiting for the train.
The platform.
The platform. The train fucking crashes, and like fucking just fucking masses of blind people are just piling off the train, dazed, mixing in with the people, causing all kinds of chaos. And I'm like, okay, that was cool. You know?
Yeah. I remember that. Oh, the other thing I remember was the bit where all the prisoners who were in the prison who weren't allowed to go outside and see the light show, they overcame their guards, and now they're rampaging through, was it France?
France.
Yeah. So there's all these convicts with machine guns. What were they doing? Were they raping a nunnery or something? Were they literally raping a nunnery?
It might have been a nunnery. It was like
girls' school.
It was like a girls. There's all these women there, and blind people, and these 3 or 4 people who had sight were trying to help everybody else out, and they were getting drunk and dancing with them, you know. So.
Yeah, well, that's the best we can do in 1962. That's why the Baptists don't like dancing.
Yeah, good.
It's a metaphor for rape.
Yeah, dancing is the new rape, but I don't know.
That was our 1962 metaphor for men behaving badly, was making the girls dance.
You know, those monsters.
Those monsters! Thank God the Triffids ate them.
but while all this is going on, there's this guy and there's like a man and a woman. I don't remember if they're married. They might be married or
two separate characters out of the blue.
Yeah, they are in a lighthouse in the middle of the water. I guess like maybe in the channel or something, doing experiments on animals because he's like a marine biologist, and apparently he's a raving drunkard and wants to give up his work because he has to go back so he can get himself some. I want a decent scotch. I don't have to wait till the boat comes and
Okay, so he's a complete loser.
Yeah, complete loser. But apparently a Triffid plant lands there because they're spawning, and she's the one who screams a lot. When it breaks, it's like it breaks into the house and it's waving its things everywhere, and they're trying to fight it off, and they're chopping it apart, and he's like, damn it, it's like I'm not a botanist. I don't know. He's like.
Why did I major in marine biology? Why did I?
As he's cutting it apart, trying to find an answer, because he's like, we got to find a way to destroy it, and blah 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 blah. Well, eventually they do. Should we spoil? Should we spoil it?
Spoil it, because this fix for the Triffids is right up there with how to get rid of the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yeah. So all this being said, there people are running around trying to find places to go, and they do electric fence. So they eventually find out on the lighthouse that the way to kill them, and they foreshadowed it early on, because at the top of the stairwell, and you see it many times, I guess there's like a fire hose that uses as a seawater pump. It says, use only in fire because it'll corrode. So he starts, they're at the top of the lighthouse, and I got to beat back these Triffids, so he gets the fire hose out, and salt water dissolves the plants.
Yeah. Now, we know salt water's no good for plants, obviously, but
No. It dissolves them.
Like, yeah, I mean, it turns into, what I remember is green sludge running down the stairs. They just start pouring out green sludge like it's the Wicked Witch getting a bucket of water right there in front of Dorothy and the Tin Man, and they just...
So eventually, when Bill Mason, who is just a guy, they find the Navy ships, they get them picked up, they eventually find these people in the lighthouse that they discovered the way to defeat the Triffids. So at the end of the movie, yay, humanity has found a way to defeat the Triffids. So they know that salt water kills them. So apparently, the day is saved. We can beat all these monster plants, kill them all, and then we go to church.
Okay. On the church thing, don't they put sound beacons, play Triffid sounds out in the ocean, and the Triffids all just sort of lemming their way off?
No. There was actually, that wasn't anything. The only thing it did was he had some kind of gypsy truck they found with a big microphone, and he played music to get them away from the house so everybody else could get away.
Okay.
That was about it. No, they drove them away, and eventually, like I said, they killed them with salt water, and then they went to church. Because that was at the end.
Literally, there's a big Jesus moment at the end of the movie.
Yes, they're all they're all walking all solemn up the stairs to this church in Spain. We killed the Triffids and humanity survived and we prospered again, and they're all going to church, and then it ends.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, where did God intervene here? Did God take a big a broom and sweep the Triffids into the ocean? I don't remember that part of the movie, but yet we are still incredibly grateful for stuff that clearly didn't happen. Okay.
Exactly. Some people were posting online. Somebody posted, who does Trail of Cthulhu? That's with
Pelgrane
has a scenario called Cthulhu Apocalypse: Dead White World. They said it sounds like they got a lot of inspiration from the Day of the Triffids. Are you familiar with that scenario at all?
No, I am not. I've got a pile of Pelgrane stuff that I've been going through, but they just did. In fact, they just have a book out that was. I think they did a collection of one-offs that are all post Great Old Ones Coming Back sort of scenarios. But I have not gotten to that one yet. That's not what I'm familiar with.
So apparently, White Worlds. So look at that. And then somebody else mentioned that. To look up the books, there's also Revolt of the Triffids, but I think Revolt of the Triffids was actually because I think it was originally published in a couple of parts, and I think originally, or hold on a second here.
You think it was brought together and turned into Night of the Triffids?
I'm looking here. Hold on.
All right. Oh my God, we've got dead air.
I know. While I'm looking that up, while I'm looking for Vault of the Triffids, start talking to our friends about the 1981 adaptation.
All right. Well, there's not much to say except, oh my God, the goddamn BBC knows how to do an apocalypse right. I mean, they'd already proved that with Survivors, so we knew they could do an apocalypse right, and that predates this Triffid miniseries by, I think, 6-7 years. But the Triffid miniseries is, yes, it is low budget, but they stay well within their means. They don't go outside their ability to look good. And they build a fair number of Triffid props. The Triffid props, I think, look great.
They look very good.
They're a variant on a pitcher plant design, not like a Venus flytrap. They have this big trumpet with the pestle or stamen in the middle that whips out like a stinger and whacks people in the eyes and makes them blind. They even designed a prosthetic makeup effect for the sting, so it had a very distinctive sting when it stung people. It really follows the book almost blow by blow by blow all the way down the line, which is good. That was the right call. They do not go off into inappropriate romances or whole other stories. They don't introduce unnecessary characters like our drunk marine biologist and his screaming wife. They just have the main characters deal with the problem, and it
is updated a little bit because it's 30 years later, but you really couldn't tell. They're very true to the story. They followed it very closely. They elaborated a little bit more in a few areas in the book, but it wasn't necessarily for the TV series.
Yeah, and of course they have the Triffid gun. Let's not forget the Triffid gun.
Yep, and they have the Triffid gun in the book, and they had it in the movie, the TV show. Oh, by the way, they mentioned Revolt of the Triffids. Revolt of the Triffids was an alternate name for the Day of the Triffids.
Okay.
Well, at least according to Wikipedia and everything else I've looked at, I think it was maybe originally known as that. So there you go.
All right, cool. And as we know, everything in Wikipedia is always correct.
Well, I saw it on a couple of other websites as well, so I think it was just an alternate name for it. Yeah. So the original, who originally showed me this? I'm trying to think. Maybe was it Migliore? Maybe originally showed me this.
It might have been. Andrew Migliore is always a good source for horror movies. He was the founder of the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. He's always a good source. But yeah, I ran across it in high school. It was showed on PBS, where all the BBC came back in the day, and and had to watch it live. Had to watch it on, you tuned in, or it was gone. That was how it worked.
And I watched a lot of public television too in the early '80s, mid '80s.
That's how you saw Blake 7.
Yeah, but I never saw the Day of the Triffids on there.
Yeah, well, it wasn't on much because it was only a miniseries.
I watched a lot of public television. I never saw anything. So I didn't discover until the early 2000s, watching it in Andrew's basement. He's like, you gotta watch this. And
it delivers. It absolutely delivers on all the ways you want in a post-apocalyptic miniseries. They take their time to tell the story. It does not drag, but they get a lot of stuff done.
Oh, and also, so if your knows. When I originally had to get it, I had to get the British version, so it was a foreign region. But it's now available. There's an American version of it as well.
Yeah, I have it in NTSC, so I have the American region for that.
Yeah, I have NTSC now. I originally had the PAL version because I have a player that could do that. But when it became available in NTSC, I picked it up. Same thing like I did with Survivors. It became available, I picked it up, just so I have to worry about, because it's like, I'm always going to be able to play stuff here, but if I ever lost my player, But anyway, so yeah, solid series. You can pick it up. Well worth. I don't know how much it runs now, but I'm sure you can pick it up pretty cheap. Well worth the price of admission. And it's a good. It's 157 minutes, so it's got a fair amount to watch. I think it's 6 episodes.
Yeah, I think it's 6 episodes of basically half-hour apiece.
Yeah, and it's definitely worth it. Now, 6 episodes. Each one, let's see here. Yeah, 60-something minutes. Now.
Oh, it's an hour though, so it's 6 hours long almost. Okay.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Unless I'm reading that wrong.
No, I think you're right. I'm looking at the same thing. Part 1.
Yeah, so anyway, so the BBC, in their infinite wisdom, decided to make a newer version. Now, I only have this thing because I couldn't track it down anywhere else because I don't have a good video store like Scarecrow. Wasn't available on Netflix, wasn't available anywhere. So I was able to pick this up for less than $10 with shipping, brand new. So I figured, you know what? For what it might cost me to try to find some way to rent it, if I could, for less than $10, I'll just get it. And, now it makes a nice coaster.
Yeah. That is the best use you can put that towards.
Day of the Triffids, remake 2009. Oof, not good.
Yeah. First of all, cartoon Triffids.
Oh yeah, awful. And they crawl, and they have lots of tentacles. Again, very spider-like. They're not as scary because they walk around. Again, they're like Monster of the Week. They changed a lot of the characters around, like Torrance is now the main evil bad guy, and it's like. The Triffid oil thing is now a big secret. Like, it wasn't like people don't really know about Triffids. They're these secret farms under like heavy guard that they're getting this Triffid oil that they're making from. There's activists trying to fight against them. It's just and people are like, oh, what's a Triffid? Oh my God, I'm dying. Because you have the same thing happen. There's a blindness from a meteor shower, which causes everybody to be blind, just like the original story. Bill Mason is in the hospital from being almost blinded by a Triffid. So they do a lot of the same stuff, but that's where it just kind of goes off.
But then really, Eddie Izzard as Torrance becomes the main problem.
Yeah.
As opposed to
the
Triffids. Yeah.
The Triffids aren't the problem. He is.
Yeah. And at least in the book and the series, yeah, people people show up to cause problems, but they are really just a break in the ennui of the continuing Triffid problem.
Yeah.
The Triffids never stop being the threat, and in this, well, first of all, I mean, I don't know, I was bothered by the lack of actual Triffid. I mean, I'm always a little snobby about CGI versus actual props.
Yeah.
And as low budget as the Triffids are in the BBC 84, 81 version, they're better looking than CGI because it's cheap CGI.
I'm a bigger fan of practical effects. I would rather have practical effects than cheap CGI.
Yeah. Like
half-ass CGI.
Yeah. And it's kind of half-ass. They're really not good. And so the monsters, because the monsters are ineffective, that makes a lot of it fall apart right off the bat.
Yeah, and again, the Triffids are not the problem. They're a little bit of a problem, but
it becomes a personal conflict and drama between the people as opposed to trying to overcome a situation. It's like if we're going to make a movie about mountain climbing, I would think that the drama would be about the perils of gravity and rock slides and frostbite, not, we have to talk about our relationship, like that shit they did in the middle of Team America World Police. One of my favorite moments is right in the middle of an air battle, everyone decides to take the time to talk about their relationships, which is standard sort of bullshit where they think that the viewer will not be 800 number, not going to pick up that call. That the viewer is not going to be content with dealing with the situation. That there has to be some sort of subplot or sub thing going on where there's relationships and who's dating who and who likes who better.
Well, because the television industry thinks you're stupid, and you need to and you need to be, spoon-fed soft entertainment.
I'll bet you that it's even, frankly, a swipe at female viewers. Like, female viewers won't be interested in Apocalypse. They need to know. They're going to need to know like who's getting along with who. Like it's a Survivor or something. Like it's one of those reality TV shows like Big Brother. We have to have all that interpersonal drama, and that's what brings in the female viewer. And I think that's absolute horseshit.
It's like
it's condescending.
Yeah, and it's about Bill and his relationship with his father that he tracks down, who his father was this scientist, who studied the Triffids, and he finds him. I need your help, Dad. We need to defeat the Triffids because they're going to be a problem because people don't believe me,
Yeah, I remember that, and that's an incredible waste of Brian Cox as the dad. If you want to use Brian Cox correctly, he's either Hannibal Lecter or he's pronouncing Scotch. Those are the two best uses for Brian Cox.
Yeah, so it's just horrible. And well, there was one interesting part where they find the nunnery like they did in the original, where the people were like, like they found them.
Oh yeah.
They found them in the book, and they're like, listen, you really shouldn't do this. It's not going to work. You need help. No, we're fine. So they twisted that and made it to where, which I found, I kind of thought it was pretty interesting how the head nun, was keeping everybody together, and people were going, out on, the long walk. They were like, listen, they're going to go, and they're going to recruit other people and start their own little place, and everybody, yay, let them go. But basically, she was just keeping the Triffids happy by sending people out for breakfast,
Yeah, that's how you keep the Triffids at bay, is to appease them with sacrifices.
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting. I mean, again, I think it's bullshit. I don't think it would have worked because the Triffids were just like, hey, look, there's more people there. That they keep them happy by giving them a little bit of food. But it was at least okay. All right, that's interesting. More so than
what a turn on the head from 1962 or 3, where at the end of the thing, with no intervention from God, everyone goes to the church and looks up piously at the end after. There is no divine intervention to stop the Triffids, and yet in the 2009 one, the representative of organized religion is feeding people to the Triffids.
Yeah.
I think our views on religion have changed over the last 50 years.
So, and another thing. Well, actually, there's one thing I liked about there was one thing I liked about the movie was that apparently every big city, was on fucking fire.
Yeah.
Every major city was fucking an inferno, like hell on earth. Like somebody was running around with a gas can and a box of matches, just lighting up the whole fucking city.
Yeah. When there's not enough of us to fight the fires, these things are going to burn down in a hurry.
Well, they kept on alluding to it in the movie. They're like, stay where you are. You don't want to hurt yourself, and you might cause a fire. They kept on saying that and saying that and saying that. And then all of a sudden, look, London is burning down. Yeah. So. And then they do talk about that. Well, not that in the book, but they talk about that in the miniseries, the original, the '81, how they're going back to the city and they're like, listen, we can't go back to London anymore because it goes to be like a good decade. They're like, listen, buildings are falling, roads are blocked. There's a lot of disease there, So at least they're addressing
dogs.
So they were addressing. The issue of, okay, well, how are things going to decay? How long are we going to be able to go back there? Kind of like, and he talked a lot about it more in the book about how things degraded and fell apart, which kind of makes me think of, I wonder if the guy who wrote the book that came out before the Life After People series. There's a book, The World Without Us.
Yeah.
It almost seems like, I wonder if they were, I wonder if he read the Day of the Triffids, because they really kind of talk like that in the Day of the Triffids about how things are going to collapse and how things are going to break down and how we're not going to be able to fix things anymore and how bridges will decay.
Our stuff keeps standing up because we're constantly fixing it.
Yeah, so they address that in the book, and then they talk about it a little bit less in the TV series. So, But it's good. But anyway, so yeah.
So does Triffids get 10 out of 10 mushroom clouds as far as post-apocalypse goes?
Overall, as a concept, yeah, I'd say yeah, definitely. You know, leaving out the bad '63 movie and leaving out the terrible remake. And well, here's the one other thing I really hated about this fucking this remake TV series was how they escaped from his dad's mansion because they
I don't remember that.
Oh, let me tell you, okay? Because they kept on. I'm spoiling it. They kept on flashing back to his mom in the jungle because apparently Triffids have been around for a long time, and the natives in I think it was like Uruguay. They kept on. His mom died. He survived, and they kept on showing this fucking wooden mask. Okay. Then eventually, he's back at his dad's. They find the mask. Like, how are we going to get past all the Triffids? We don't know how we're going to get past the Triffids. So he finally remembers the mask. And puts the mask over his face, and there's slits in each of the eyes of the mask, and apparently you take Triffid poison, and if you put it in the mask, it only drips a little bit into your eyes. That's, of course, if it's lined up. If your eyes are the exact same as the eyes,
yeah, okay,
that somebody made, of course, it's perfect fit. So you drop the Triffid poison in your eye through the mask, and then your eyes get all black and fucked up, and it kind of looks like your makeup ran in the rain because you're like Morrissey or something. And I'm sorry. and I'm sorry. And of course, they walk right through the Triffids. There's a fucking forest of Triffids around this house, and they walk right past them, because they drip Triffid poison in their eyes with the mask. And of course, Torrance gets eaten alive. Oh, I hate you! Firing the gun, and the plants just fucking wrap him up and kill him. So that was such a stupid fucking way for them to escape.
I'd have been thrilled if the natives, because they always go for the eyes, if the native mask had just been a way to keep getting slapped in the face by a Triffid.
That's what I was hoping it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then they started dripping poison in the eyes. I'm like, oh, come on.
God damn it.
And the only other thing that was interesting in that movie, the TV series, was like he was doing a lot of studies on audio, listening to them, the communication. So he had some recordings he would use to distract them or draw them in, different sounds that make them more aggressive because he found his mom's old reel-to-reels. So the whole audio thing with trying to communicate was kind of mildly interesting subplot to it, but the escape was just terrible.
I remember that now. That was awful. Yeah. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of them thinking that they're being smart, that the writers are. Like somehow this is the Triffid equivalent of The Walking Dead, where they smeared zombie corpse all over each other to walk out. That was great. Yeah. I was happy with the zombie stink on everybody, but holy crap, Triffid eye drops. Yeah. Okay, fuck you, writer. Fuck you.
Here you go. Here's my eye drops to keep my contacts moist, but it's not going to save me from the Triffids. Okay. So our recommendations, folks: stay away from the 2009 TV series. Absolutely, stay away from it. We suffered for you. Okay, we made the sacrifice and watched it, so you don't have to. Okay? 1981 TV series, absolutely fucking watch this. 100%. Okay? Get it. Read the book as well. Good read, easily available. Get the fucking book. And unless your thing is 1950s monster movies like Them and 20,000. If you like those types of movies,
I'm going to say that Them is better than Day of the Triffids, though. Okay.
Oh, I remember Them as well. I love watching it as a kid. If you like those types of movies, watch it. Otherwise, you can avoid it.
Yeah.
In my recommendation.
It is not the apocalypse you're looking for.
Somebody also commented that wouldn't the fires get rid of the disease and the rodents and the disease rodents and pests? It would also get rid of the cities too. Cities.
The fire will drive the rodents out of the city and into our communities.
Yes. Yep, exactly. If you see a horde of rats running your direction, run with them because they're running from something.
Best part of Cloverfield, right there.
Exactly. So that's it, folks. That's our, the day of the Triffids. We covered a lot of, different aspects of it.
A lot of news this time.
We had a lot of news, a lot of tangents. Next show, I was thinking about it, and I was talking to Scott prior to the show about, have we talked about weapons, defense? Now I'm not talking about, nuclear weapons, but you know what? How are you going to defend yourself? We've touched on it in, different aspects of, like, firearms and this and that and trade, but we've never really talked about weapons in the apocalypse. Is it going to be the Wild West? Is it eventually going to deteriorate? Are people going to go with bows, or are people going to this? Vehicle, or catapults, whatever. So we're going to talk about weaponry. We're going to call the episode 33, Sticks and Stones.
Sticks and Stones it is. And we'll definitely try and pick out not just the stuff that we actually, from our reading of apocalypse literature, think would be a realistic weapon, but also some of our favorite post-apocalyptic weapons, no matter how ludicrous they might actually be. Absolutely.
And I think for this show, I'm going to try to loop in some friends of the show, definitely. We definitely got, people like, Verhol again, or maybe Clint, or because they do a lot of stuff like their Wisdoms of the Wasteland magazine that they put out, which talks about weapons, it talks about armor, this and that. So we'll loop some of our friends from Skirmisher Publishing back in to join the conversation, so we can have some other input, because they're game designing and they're doing a lot of apocalyptic shit. So I think they'd have something to contribute.
I will attempt not to constantly reference the Teutonic 45 hardballers with the Packmeyer grips when it comes to weapons of the apocalypse, because holy crap! Thank you, Jerry Ahern and the Survivalist.
Yeah, of course, the only weapon in the apocalypse is your twin Daytonics 45s with the Packmark grips.
God damn it.
That is your only survival weapon.
That's all you need, apparently. No matter what happens, he's always back to those, because nothing makes you more accurate than firing two pistols at the same time.
Absolutely. And of course, if you're John Thomas Rourke, the survivalist. But, and our friend looks like Zatoon Man apologized for being late to the party because he had to make a drive to Seattle. Don't worry. This is just a live broadcast. It is recorded, and it'll be archived on the YouTube channel. It'll be up probably within the next half hour, so you can come back and watch the full show on the YouTube channel.
Watch us prattle on again and again, because we're so damn entertaining.
We are entertaining. At least we like to think so.
To ourselves.
Yes, of course.
And that's what counts, because it's not like it's not like our outlay of cash to make this happen is so big,
Yeah.
This is free for us. We're just going to pollute the airwaves.
And of course, all the money we're making off this.
Yeah, exactly. All the merchandising. We are doing that, aren't we? Isn't there merchandising?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I'm gonna work on that. And hey, we get review copies of books, so we've.
Oh, you're right. You know what?
That's right. This is profit right here, baby.
Pure profit.
But also no, it's cool. It's like somebody wants us to review a book, and hey, we will absolutely read it and give you an honest review.
Let's try and get Fractured reviewed, not next show, but the show after we do Sticks and Stones.
Yeah, I'm gonna need a little time to read.
That'll give us a month.
Yeah, so we should be good for that. And what else was I gonna say? Yeah, and what other show are you gonna get people referencing Morrissey in the apocalypse?
Not a lot. I don't think a lot of shows are going to.
Yeah, I don't think they want to. So
probably for good reason.
All right, folks. So we're going to wrap it up. So again, remember 2 weeks from now, episode 33, Sticks and Stones. We're going to be talking about apocalyptic weapons, armor, all that kind of good stuff. And how do I know when the next podcast will be? Somebody asked. Well, it's going to be in 2 weeks. We do the show on Monday nights live, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, that is 6 p.m. West Coast time. So we do it generally every 2 weeks. Okay, sometimes there's variance in the schedule, but generally it's every 2 weeks. You also could find out when the new show is coming up. You could go to the blog. You could go to podcast at Ground Zero, just spelled out, podcast at groundzero.com, and I update when the new shows are going to be posted on the blog, and also during the week I try to at least several times a week post when I find news, interesting things, talk about the show. You could also follow us on Facebook. It's just facebook.com/podcast at Ground Zero. What I do on the Facebook, just like the page, and when generally within a few days before the show posts, I create a Facebook event, so you can see when it's going to be. You can say you're joining, so you'll have a reminder that the show's coming up. But again, we're going to be doing it in 2 weeks. And then you also, well, since I'm talking about social media, you can also follow us on the Twitter, because sometimes I post things to Twitter that I don't necessarily post on the blog or the Facebook page. It's twitter.com/podcast at G0. And you can find all of these links on their main blog page, podcast@groundzero.com. I have links to all the social media on the right-hand column. And again, you can follow your RSS reader feed. And again, you could like the Facebook, like the Twitter, or just come back to the blog every once in a while, and you'll see all that information. So that's how you follow it, if you didn't know. So, but if you do follow us on social media, please like us. Follow us on Twitter, like the Facebook page. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. So, because we can bolster up our numbers that way. So again, 2 weeks from now, which will be, what is that, October, let me pull up the calendar, October 12th, 13th. October 13th, we will have Sticks and Stones, Apocalyptic Weapons. So this is the Apocalypse Nerd and Enabon Glancy from Podcast at Ground Zero. Thank you for joining us, and we will see you in the Wastelands.
Good night.